What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, and the QQQ. I'm going to break down some very important technical developments on the charts and why I believe that the downside is going to be very limited for the markets and why some upside is likely going to be coming very soon and how this could end up playing out for all these different tickers. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. This offer ends in just about 11 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So for the market, I was calling for more downside yesterday, and the market did drop more. However, intraday, it looked like we had a potential inverse head and shoulders developing. And this was just early on when it was started to develop. I was talking about the market trying to push. The market pushed up more, but then this move ended up failing. And then we ended up coming right back down to 422. I warned everyone that if 422 broke, expect 420. And that did end up happening later on during the day. However, it didn't really happen in a way where this inverse head and shoulders held. This ended up just failing. This ended up being like a bull trap. And things like this happen. The market has lots of manipulation, but the best thing we could do is just, move on and then just try to continue moving forward despite things like this. So with this failed inverse head and shoulders and the market selling off the way it did, I want to break down some things about next week and what I think could end up playing out for the markets. So right now, I just want to make it clear that the fear and greed index is still very close to these extreme levels. And once we reach extreme fear, we tend to see the market bottom out and try to make a very big reversal. So we're going to be watching this all very carefully. Extreme Fear is making up market momentum, and this was updated for today, by the way, for October 20th at 4:20 p.m. Extreme Fear is now making up a lot of these different indicators. The market is just becoming very, very scared. We're seeing market volatility going up with the VIX increasing in value, and many investors are becoming mega, mega bears, saying the market's going to crash and this and that. I personally don't really agree with that. I believe that there is going to be a trap that's being set for many retail investors, and what people don't really expect could end up playing out. So I will talk more about that in tomorrow's video. I will just briefly touch that today, but it's just worth noting that there isn't really much else coming out for the markets for the rest of the next, like the remainder of the month, basically. We have some data from the Fed on Monday. There's not really much else coming. I mean, most of the data is quite minor, some GDP numbers here and there. Nothing else too crazy. We do have PCE data coming out next week, but nothing else is like it's like way too insane or anything like that. So we're going to be watching all these levels. We're going to be watching how the market ends up moving. And now I just want to break down some very important things. So as far as SPY goes, as you guys could tell, this thing sold off quite a bit. It made an attempt to bounce and failed, came right back down. So we have very, very strong support at 420, and we just touched 420 during the after hours today. So at 420, we could see some buyers' attempts to step up, but if they fail, it's going to be okay. So don't panic. The daily SPY chart, the RSI is forming a bullish divergence, and so is the MACD. So this is important because even though we look a little bit more bearish on the daily, even though this thing could drop a little bit more, okay, we're going to be watching 420. Do we hold 420 or not? If we fell at 420, we could see this thing head towards this like 417, 418 area. And then we could be establishing a mega bullish divergence, which is going to lead us to some kind of bounce. Now, what else is worth noting is that on the hourly time frame, we also have a smaller bullish divergence. On the 4-hour time frame and all these different indicators, we're seeing just like, bullish divergences. So I'm seeing two possibilities on SPY. Number one, and maybe it's like three possibilities, but number one would be like, if the bottom is in, 420 could be the bottom and we just see the market bounce from here and we just start uptrending and we just attempt to go from here and the market just starts uptrending towards 430 over the next week or so, right? Just for reference, that would be like the first case. The second case would be, maybe we see some buyers step in here, but then we fail and we get one last pump to the downside towards this 417 area and the market establishes a double or even a triple bullish divergence. And then we see the bounce come a little bit later as the market forms this final bottom for this time frame. And then we start pushing going into November. That's another real possibility. The third possibility would be basically, we see SPY just straight up sell off even more because we have a bearish looking daily candle. If we do sell off, we have to watch 420. Do we hold or not? If we break below it, it is possible we come down to this like 417 area first, and then we establish the bullish divergence on the RSI and for many other indicators, and we just get ready to bottom out. When everyone turns super, super fearful, if this were to happen, then we could get a bounce. So I'm seeing like three possibilities. But either way, I believe that over the next 2 weeks, the market is going to bounce very nicely as we get into November. And I believe that there's going to be some nice upside coming. Now, I don't know if we're going to sell off first to establish a bullish divergence and bounce, or we get an attempted bounce, which I think is still very possible, and it fails, and then we get one more sell off to establish divergence, and then we get the bounce. So I don't know if it's going to be like a false bounce and a drop, and then we get the real bounce, or if we just continue selling, then we get the real bounce. But either way, regardless of what happens, okay, regardless of how this plays out, one of these will play out most likely, in my honest opinion. Regardless of it, going into November, I think there's a good chance the market's going to bounce soon, and we have the same outcome either way, no matter which way it goes. Upside is going to be coming soon, and the market is going to bounce when people least expect it, because everyone or the majority of investors are becoming fearful. There's all this talk about the market crashing and this and that. Yes, it makes sense though, because you have to remember that fundamentals are not necessarily the best right now. We're continuing to see bad news. If you look at inflation, that's starting to uptrend a bit. If you look at what's happening with the Federal Reserve's languages, if you look at what's happening around the world, things right now are just causing a lot of fear amongst investors. But don't forget that, first off, when it comes to wars tend to be bullish for the market for the medium term and also the longer term. You can't forget about that. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And then secondly, remember, if everyone's expecting a crash, if more and more shorts are continuing to pile in, okay, people are becoming more and more fearful, sure. Well, Wall Street is just getting us excited. They want us to get excited. They're just teasing us. They want us to all think the crash is coming. And that's exactly why I believe something very different is going to happen. So I will talk more about that in tomorrow's video. I just want to focus now on what's going to happen for the shorter term. But I do see, this coming out for like the short term for the next 2 weeks. Basically, one of these three possibilities on SPY. I'm going to translate this for other tickers as well, because I think the market's moving very similarly. So for the QQQ, we have a bearish looking daily candle as well. Let me just pull up the QQQ's daily candle on this chart. You will see that the QQQ could drop a little bit more, and I think it's going to bottom out either at 351 or 353. And I believe a nice bounce is going to be coming because we have some critical support at 351. We've seen the QQQ bounce off that range many, many times. And if we do end up dropping even lower than that, so like 350, into the very high 240s, right, we still have a bullish divergence that's developing. So it could drop a little bit more, but I'm expecting a bounce very soon on the triple Q. It depends on how we end up reacting to these key supports. We could see, 350, maybe even 247, but even if it drops a little bit more, I just want to let you know that downside is most likely going to be very limited for the QQQ, for many other stocks out there. And I believe that the upside is likely coming very soon. So we're going to be looking for a small drop towards possibly 353, possibly 350, maybe even a little bit lower. If that happens, that's fine. It's a buying opportunity, and we should get a very, very nice bounce very soon. Now, there could be a false bounce or kind of like a failed breakout that happens where we try to bounce in the beginning and we just fail. Get one last sell off for this cycle, one last sell off, major sell off for the quarter, and then the market's going to see the bottom for the quarter, and then the market starts pushing very, very nicely from here on out. Now let's talk about Tesla. I think Tesla's on a lot of people's radars. What is Tesla doing? How is Tesla looking? The answer is it basically hit this 210 area and it tried to bounce. It actually formed its bottom there for the day. And the thing about Tesla is 212 ended up holding. We actually closed above it, which is a decent sign. Remember, 212 is where we have critical support on Tesla. We tried to bounce, but we failed to bounce, but we managed to hold above a higher level than before, which is still like a very mixed sign. So on the 30 minutes time frame, we have a potential. There's a small bullish divergence here, but it was very minor. Tesla just got a very small 5-point move to the upside before sinking. I believe that Tesla is close to its bottom. It could drop a little bit more before it bottoms, but I believe that this thing is due for a bounce. Now, before we bounce, let's not call the bounce yet. It is possible Tesla comes down to 210 again. Either between 210 and 212, we could see this thing bounce. If it fails at 210, then it could come all the way down to 208, if not 205, and then bounce. But either way, guys, I think downside is going to be very limited on Tesla. And I think that Tesla is going to try to bounce with the market, at least temporarily, because it's very oversold. And a lot of investors tend to step in very close to these levels. My guts tells me maybe 210 to 212 could be it, and Tesla tries to bounce. But just to be safe, we'll have to wait and see. But we'll look for a bounce all the way back to at least 220. I think it's going to make an attempt to get back up here, but it may take a couple of days to get there. It could take a while. Could drop a little bit more first before the bounce comes, but expect a bounce soon on Tesla. For Nvidia, it's the same thing. The reason I'm saying this about Nvidia is because Nvidia looks very different. If you guys look at Nvidia, we had a weak close, but we held the low from the very beginning of the day. So we could be establishing a bottom there. And we had a bullish divergence. So NVIDIA had that. On the daily charts looking a little weak. So it could drop a little closer to like 409 before it bounces. So I could see a little bit more downside, but I'm anticipating some buyers are going to be stepping in very soon. So as far as NVIDIA goes, we could enter this zone down here, this 409 area, if 410 fails us for one last drop. But then in the process, if NVIDIA ends up establishing a bullish divergence or something like that, because it already has it, we just have to maintain it. That's going to tell us that a reversal is coming, especially on the daily chart. We also have an unfilled gap above on NVIDIA, very, very close to that 440 area. I think NVIDIA is going to drop maybe a little bit more, maybe to 410, maybe even 409. And then buyers should step in and try to get this thing to bounce back above 425. That's the direction I'm leaning in. A little drop, then more of a pop as time goes on. And last but not least, for Aapl stock, I just wanted to call out that Aapl is very close to its 200 EMA at 171.6. We also have some key support at 167 and 170. So I believe at one of those levels, Aapl is going to bounce. There could be a little bit more downside coming, but a bounce should be coming soon. I believe it could get very close to the very low 170s. I'm not 100% sure exactly where it's going to bounce, but this chart suggests it could be very, very close to 170. It could come all the way down to 171 last time before the bounce happens. But either way, wherever this thing ends up holding, that's going to be very key. Now, there could be some support right here at this 172 area that causes Aapl to try to rebound a little bit before it comes right back down. So there could be a little pop and then a drop on Aapl, kind of like SPY, how it kind of like pops and then just fails one last time to establish its bottom before buyers step in and start pushing this thing higher. There are different ways it could play out. We could even drop first and then bounce. But like I said before, guys, I think downside is going to be limited, and I think Apple's going to make an attempt to bounce. Now, don't forget about earnings coming out over the next couple of weeks. We'll find out what happens with Apple's earnings. But I believe it's not going to be the end of the world, and we're just going to be as patient as possible as time goes on. All right. So thank you all for listening. I want to make this video as short as possible. From a technical standpoint, I think the market's going to make an attempt for a small bounce. Whether we bounce and then get the one big drop for the final bottom of this quarter before the much larger bounce after that, or if we just continue sinking first and then we bounce, regardless of what happens, I just want to make it clear that downside is going to be limited, in my opinion. We could see the market drop a few more points, right? A little bit more downside is possible, but don't turn into a mega bear at these lows. The market is already down quite a bit. I believe that the market's going to bounce soon. I think the market's going to uptrend soon as well over the next couple of weeks. And I'm actually pretty bullish going into the month of November. It may sound crazy, but I'm going to talk more about that for tomorrow. All right. So, anyways, thank you for listening. I want to give you guys a very important update on the monthly on SPY and talk about how we're looking, and then give you guys what I predict is going to happen over the next few months to the markets, because we have something very interesting to be discussing. But I'm going to save that for tomorrow. Take care of yourselves, guys. I'll see you guys very soon. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Enjoy your Friday, and I'll see you guys once again tomorrow. Thanks again, and peace out.